Am I the a-hole for letting my stepson, his girlfriend, and baby become homeless? My female 46 two stepsons, Eric 27 and Michael 30, live with me and their dad. But our relationship was superficial, since they kept reminding me that their mom was present in their lives and I was the outsider. They then moved away for college and rarely visited. My husband got sick with cancer and struggled for 2 years. Months before he passed away, I discovered that both Michael and Eric were slowly withdrawing money from our bank account. I didn't know they had access to it, but later found out they had access through my husband's financial information. I was livid because I needed the money for treatment and other expenses since I stopped working. I had a fight with both of them after they admitted they were moving money out of my husband's account before he died, so I won't get anything since the money was theirs. I threatened to sue, but Eric told me to buzz off because it's their money. I changed the old account immediately and moved what's left of that money to a new account. The week my husband passed away, everything in the house was taken. I'm not exaggerating. They moved everything out and sold it. My husband didn't leave a will, and I was left with just our house since my name on the lease. I haven't seen Eric or Michael for 2 years. Till a few days ago in the morning I heard noise from the outside. I opened the door and saw Eric with his car stuffed with his bags and a young lady in the passenger seat and a baby in the back. I was surprised they asked why he was here and what he was doing. And he said, "I'm moving back in my father's house with my girlfriend and my son." I was stunned, and seeing him unloading his trunk set me off. I shouted, "This is my house now, and he's not allowed to set a foot in it after everything he and his brother did." He attempted to argue that he lost his job and was evicted and had nowhere to go. He also said he and his girlfriend would have lived in their car, but there is a baby that needs a home, and there's his grandfather's house. Plus, everything that happened was planned by Michael, not him. I said they took enough already and I owe them nothing, but he ignored me and kept getting his stuff out of the car. Then he tried to get inside, insisting this was his father's house. That's when I showed him my phone and yelled that I will call the cops on him for trespassing my property. He was shocked by what I said and started begging me to let them stay just for the baby who's now my grandson. But I said no and told him to get in his car and leave. But he stalled and kept complaining about becoming homeless when his father's house is available. His girlfriend involved herself, crying about potentially having their baby taken away from them for not finding proper living arrangements. I said this wasn't my problem, but Eric kept begging, then said I was being cruel and unfair by taking my anger out on an innocent baby with no home to live in. He left but had his dad's side of the family shaming me for letting Eric go homeless and demanding I let him come to his father's house, but I refused. To answer additional questions, 1. Yes, my name is on the lease and now it's officially my house. 2. My in-laws live hours away, and the reason they said they won't take Eric in is that they don't have to when his father's house is available. So they're behind Eric, encouraging him to take back what's his. 3. I don't know anything about their mother, but she's certainly not dead, otherwise I would have found out. Now for the top comments. He left but has his dad's side of the family shaming me for letting Eric go homeless. Those family members could have given him a home as well, but they didn't. You're not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. This guy is a criminal who already robbed you blind. Why on earth would you let him back in your life, much less your house? Honestly, find some family members you actually trust to come stay with you for a while, because this snake is not going to slink away that easily. Not the a-hole. They have already taken enough from you. If his dad's side of the family is so concerned, they can take him in. Protect yourself. Get the best locks you can afford installed. Make sure your windows are secure. Get Ring cameras for any entrance into your home. Install the app in your phone. They will record if anyone is prowling around. Take any proof of ownership that the house is legally yours, plus a few utility bills as proof you live there. Important papers like passport, birth certificate, social security card, pictures, and give them to a trusted friend. Pack a go bag with a couple of changes of clothes, some cash and an extra set of car/house keys, and keep it near the door. Call the police non-emergency line and give them a heads up. Names, descriptions, description of the car. If you have any proof of the family's harassment, show them. Ask if they can do extra patrols of your neighborhood. Alert your neighbors so that they'll call the police if they see any strangers in your street, strange cars, and frequent drive-bys. Tell them that you are not moving out and no one is moving in. If they see anyone loading or unloading their car into your home, they should call 911. It all sounds scary, but you are preparing for the worst possible scenario. You are now a freaking safety Boy Scout. You are prepared. Then live your best life. If things go down, don't panic. You have a plan. Grab your bag and go. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my spouse to forgive my mom and my sister? Plus update. I have been married to my wife for 8 years. The very first day my family met her, my mom turned her back on her and ignored her, and my sister came out asking if she was ever going to see the triplets again. My ex-girlfriend had kids from a previous relationship. I was so damn pissed and embarrassed, but my significant other handled it like a champ and acted like nothing. When we got home, she cried and was really disappointed. She had been looking forward to meeting everyone. I texted both my mom and sister and chastised them both for their rude behavior, and my mom's reason was because she really liked my ex and her kids. Same for my sister. I took my significant other to my mom's for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and my mom and sister were still standoffish. After we left, my significant other said she didn't want to go over anymore, and I promised her she wouldn't. I asked her to marry me a few months after, and we didn't invite any of my family to our ceremony. Not her choice. She said I was more than welcome to, but I didn't think my family deserved to be there. Then my mom found out and reached out and asked if we would like to have dinner. My significant other encouraged me to go, but she had no desire to. I went, and it ended up being a party at an Italian restaurant with all of my family. They were all asking for my wife, and it was so damn uncomfortable having to make an excuse. But I understood. My wife has stayed away but does help me buy gifts for everyone's birthdays and holidays and goes with me to visit my grandparents. Now, my sister's daughter was diagnosed with cancer this month. My wife has been incredibly helpful and has assisted in any way possible, and I was hoping this would lead to everyone forgetting the past. I asked my wife if she'd consider coming around to my mom's, and she refused. I told her I didn't understand why, that all this drama was 8 years ago and she was doing all this nice stuff for them right now. She said helping out is the right thing to do, but that it doesn't mean she has to be friends with them. I did raise my voice and told her that being stubborn helps no one, and she called me an a-hole for not understanding. So am I? Edit. Changed some details for privacy. Now for the top comments before the little update. You're the a-hole. Your wife is a saint for helping out and being kind when the situation obviously calls for it, but she doesn't have to forgive people who treated her like trash for years and years, and it's extremely unsupportive of you to keep asking her to. You are the biggest a-hole. Did your mother or sister ever bothered apologizing to your wife? Sounds like they continued their awful behavior toward her even after you called them out on it. I was wondering the same thing. I seen a mention of my mom and sister apologized and seemed sincere. They also try to reach out and include my wife, but I have sent messages / cards / gifts to her to re-apologize, but my wife still says no. Seems like mom and sister only told OP yeah sure, we're sorry about that. Let her know we are sorry. That isn't an apology to OP's wife. Yes, you are an a-hole. You promised her she didn't have to go back, so why are you trying to make her now? Man, all of y'all are really making me see things differently. I admit now I'm being selfish. With my niece being sick and my wife helping out, I thought maybe we could all just get along. I see now I messed up. Now for the little update. Thank you all for opening my eyes. I've never felt so attacked, but I'm grateful for it all. I have totally changed my way of thinking. My wife is amazing, and the last thing I want is to take her around people who don't have her best interests at heart. Unfortunately, it took advice from strangers for me to see. Nonetheless, I am thankful. I can't reply to everyone. I have a lot of making up to do. My wife has read so many comments and would like you all to know she's very thankful to see so much support. She says she's always felt guilty about staying away, but feels better about her decision now. At the end of the day, my wife deserves peace, and I will not force her to do anything she doesn't like. She's pretty gleeful right now. Lol. Thank you all. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my son the truth about his mom? Their mom, 44 female and I, 44 male, broke up 9 years ago because I caught her cheating with my friend in our own home with our 4-month-old son, sleeping in the next room. The breakup was hard, especially for the kids, but as parents we did everything possible so that they can be happy. And we decided that we would never tell them the reason we broke up until they are adults. For them, we only broke up because it was the best. We always told them that we functioned better separately, and that way we could all be happy. But I got tired. I met someone a few years after our breakup, and now we are married and have a 21-month-old girl, and she's pregnant with our second. But my 2 oldest kids, 19 male, 18 male, refused to meet their sister. They don't even speak to my wife, 27 female, and never wanted to tell me why. They just hate her. And at first, when we started dating, it was kind of understandable. My wife is younger, and she was the first person I dated after breaking up with her mother, so I decided to give them a few months so they could adjust to the new situation. But those months turned into years, and they never really tried to get to know my wife. And she always said that she was okay with that, so I decided to let it go. But their attitude just got worse. And when our daughter was born, they didn't want to meet her. And I'm not gonna lie, that pissed me off because they were treating her like a stranger, just because they don't like her mom. So for a while I stopped texting them since I was always the one who contacted them. And I had no interest in contacting them again. But the other day my wife was crying, and I asked her what was going on. And she showed me some texts they sent her. She tried to contact them a few weeks ago so we could fix our relationship, and they just insulted her. They called her a cheap woman and told her that they will never meet that bastard, our daughter, because they hate our daughter as much as they hate my wife. I read the whole thing and was so mad that I called one of them, and we had a fight over those texts. I decided that he hates my wife because his mom told them I cheated on her with my wife, which is a lie because I didn't even know her at the time. So I got mad and told him that he was wrong, and that the cheater was his mother, and that if he didn't believe me, that I could show them the papers that I still have from the paternity test that we had to do, because she didn't even know who was the real father of our 9-year-old son, because she cheated for years. He was speechless and just hung up the call. And now I feel like maybe I went too far because I shouldn't have told him that. But I was mad because I love my daughter and my wife, and I don't want anyone to hurt them. She's the sweetest and kindest person I ever met in my life, and seeing her sad or crying breaks my heart, and that's why I reacted that way. Am I the a-hole for telling him that? Oh, hell no. Not the a-hole 1,000 times over. Your ex crossed a line that should never be crossed, and only to screw you over for no other reason than out of pure spite and or jealousy. You did the right thing to combat lies with the truth. Eventually the truth will win out, but it'll take time. Yeah, lying about the innocent party cheating completely nullifies the proverbial non-disclosure agreement about the guilty parties cheating. Talk about literally asking for it, not the a-hole. This is why no plan should include keeping secrets from kids. They don't work. You and your wife have suffered their unjust wrath long enough. Time for their mom to have her fair share. Not the a-hole. You were just setting the story straight. Your ex, on the other hand, major a-hole for lying to them to make you look bad and ruining your relationship with your kids. Agreed. X is the a-hole here. Opie's ex lied to his children to make him look bad. His sons are adults now, and they deserve to be told the truth. Justified. Your ex-wife lied to your children, and it had serious negative consequences for your new family, so they needed to know the truth. Passing on the information in a calmer way would have been better, of course. Still not the a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for wanting my wife's son to leave the house after he turns 18? My wife and I have been married for 5 years, and she has a 17-year-old son from a previous relationship. The father left her and her son about a decade ago, and has not been present in their lives ever since. I know it was a traumatic experience for both of them. They have a very tight bond as a result. My wife is on permanent disability and doesn't work, so I am the sole breadwinner in the household. I've always tried to be a very present figure in my stepson's life, but I also understand that I am not his father. For the past 3 years or so, her son has been having a lot of behavioral issues. When it started, my wife and I thought it was typical teenager acting out type stuff. But when his behavior continued over the course of months and into a year, we knew we had to take more action. We attended family therapy, got him individual therapy and counseling, worked with his school counselor, tried getting him involved in extracurricular activities, etc. We put a lot of time, effort, and money into as many ideas as we could think of, hoping that something would click. But nothing has worked. His grades in school are near failing, and he is at risk of not graduating next year. He will refuse to leave his room for days at a time. He has zero respect for me as a person, let alone a parent figure. He fights us on attending therapy and counseling sessions, and will not participate when we get him there. I am at my wit's end, and I am also starting to feel the hurts financially because my insurance doesn't cover all of the therapy and counseling. My wife's disability checks take some of the edge off, but I'm hemorrhaging money at this point and failing behind on bills. My stepson turns 18 in a couple months, and I'm at a point where I want to stop paying for his therapy and counseling. I am also at a point where I no longer want him in my house at the end of next school year. After a recent outburst from him, I broke down to my wife and told her all of this. She wasn't aware of the financial problems because I didn't want her to feel that her son is a burden on us. But as hard as it is to say it, he kind of is. Out of anger and frustration, I told my wife my feelings about wanting him to leave our house, and she flipped out on me. She accused me of giving up on him and basically being okay with him becoming homeless. She said she would never forgive me if I abandoned him like his father did, and that I was an a-hole for even thinking something like that, let alone telling her. It's been a huge rift between us since then, and it's put a huge damper on the holidays. A part of me wants to get this all out in the open since I think my stepson deserves to know what kind of strain this is putting on all of us. But my wife insists on being protective of him. I feel like no matter what, I am going to be the bad guy, but I also feel like I have done all that I can do. Am I the a-hole for wanting to quit supporting my stepson? Not the a-hole. You are doing everything you can to help your stepson. Unfortunately, you cannot help someone who doesn't want to be helped. While he is a minor and you have the authority to do so, have you considered inpatient help? I would suggest being honest with him. His behavior is unacceptable, and he either changes or leaves. You will pay for his therapy as long as he tries to help himself get better. This may cost you your marriage, but if you do not draw this line, you will be having the same conversation in 10 years. While he is a minor and you have the authority to do so, have you considered inpatient help? My wife outright refuses to even consider this. His therapist recommended it a little over a year ago, but my wife wouldn't even think of it. She then forced us to find a new therapist. That is denial, and all it's doing is enabling him. The shame of it is, he probably feels the most lost in all of this.
I laughed in my dad's face after my mom turned down his marriage proposal. Plus update. Original post. Something important before starting is that I'm 27 male and my parents never married. My paternal grandfather married my grandma after she got pregnant with his first son, my dad. And when the second baby came, he found out it wasn't his, but couldn't divorce her because our family was extremely religious, and divorce would not be on the table for him since it would mean all his family would cut him off, and he stayed with her until she passed away. My dad, who saw how unhappy his father was and how it affected his own life and his half-siblings too, decided he wouldn't marry until he had 2 kids of his own blood with his girlfriend. To be fair, he did talk with my mom about it, and initially she was okay with it, since she understood how it affected him. I honestly somehow do too, but it still seemed unfair to my mom. As a kid, I didn't understand at the time, and as a teenager, I didn't feel in the right to butt in or say anything. Well, my parents had me and were happy, but there were no marriage plans yet. But it was fine. They just needed to have another child. So they tried for years and years and years. And now here we are, his only son almost in his 30s, and they are still not married. My mom had fertility issues, but she wasn't infertile, and they attempted to get pregnant for many years despite the difficulties, but they never could. My mom suggested going for adoption, but it didn't align with my dad's self-imposed rule of having 2 biological children with his partner to marry, so he declined. They eventually stopped trying and seemed okay together, but my mom constantly asked to get married since they had been together since high school. But my dad did not want that because he wanted to marry after having 2 children, which was now off the table. So eventually my mom gave up and stopped asking. With that said, there was never an issue out of it that affected me directly until a few years ago. See, as I'm an only child, my parents kind of expected me to give them a grandchild, and when my parents, or should I say my dad, decided to stop trying for another baby, they agreed that they would marry when I had my own child. I didn't know it until 2 years ago, because a few years ago I came out as gay, and evidently I won't have any biological kids. I don't discard the possibility of adoption, but it's not in my plans, and my dad wanted a bio-grandson. So, unintentionally, I destroyed that last hope of them helping raise my child to finally get married. Although I know it's not my fault, but my dad's ridiculous norm he had for himself. so I don't feel one bit guilty or any remorse. At this point, my mom doesn't even care about marriage anymore. She is 58, and even before I revealed I was gay, she didn't think she would ever get married to my dad because of how much he seemed to have in his requirements to compromise. A few days ago, my parents, two of my aunts, my uncle, my dad's half-brother, and I were celebrating my mom's birthday, and she was having a nice time. She was smiling a lot, and we were giving her our gifts for her to open on the spot. When it was my dad's turn, it was one of the first gifts. She opened it, and it was a small box. No, it wasn't a ring box. It was like the size of a necklace box, so it wasn't that obvious at the moment. And when she opened it, there was a paper that said, "Would you marry me?" She turned to my dad, who was getting on one knee, taking out an engagement ring from his pocket, and waiting for my mom's response, who was looking at him with a strange look that almost made me laugh by how serious she was. She looked at him, then at my family, who were visibly more shocked than her. I was too, but I was kind of just staring blankly, so apparently no one other than my dad knew about his proposal plans. And she just said, let's not spoil the moment right now. Let me open the rest of the gifts." My dad apparently was shocked by how indifferent my mom was and sat down without saying anything, while my mom went back to cheerfully open the rest of her gifts, and the rest of the family was also enthusiastic about it. Maybe a bit too excessively, but I guess it was to avoid thinking of the awkward moment that had just happened. And after enjoying the meal, we all went to our homes. Well, that was 2 days ago, and today my dad asked if he could come to my home, and I said yes. I thought he was going to vent about what happened at my mother's birthday, and I was totally right. He cried a bit, stating how he had planned to propose to my mom after thinking a lot about it, that he was now ready, and that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her, that he couldn't believe she humiliated him like that in front of the family. The whole time I had to keep a straight face, but it was so difficult because of my dad's nonsense, until he said the last phrase and I couldn't hold back anymore and started laughing my butt off. Obviously, he got mad and asked me why I was making fun of him. I don't hate my dad, but I was a little too mean to him and said a lot of stuff I didn't say as a teenager, and even as an adult, because it wasn't my business how they handled their relationship. To summarize, I told him something like, "I don't know what you expected after leaving my mom waiting for almost 40 years for a proposal. You didn't need to wait for her to get pregnant again just because that old hag was a cheater. Or did you think my mom was a cheater too? If she was a cheater, why did you stay? If you knew she wasn't, what was the point of that stupid goal of having 2 children to prove she wasn't having an affair?" And I kept going off on him for like 40 minutes. He was so shocked I raised my voice to him, since I have never done that to anyone. He stayed quiet during my whole rant, and when I finished, he just avoided looking at me and simply apologized. I gave him some coffee before he left, so he would calm down and possibly talk to my mom. I think they will get married, but I was so annoyed that he decided to do it at the worst moment, in the worst place, and in front of everyone. And then complained he felt humiliated as if my mom wasn't waiting for him for decades for him to not even consider marriage until they got old. Bruh. I just wanted to rant. Sorry for the long text, lol. Now for the top comments before reading the update. This whole story is nuts. Good on your mom for not giving in to the pressure of a public proposal to say yes, and good on you for getting his butt about it after the fact. Yeah, I actually never thought he would ever propose, and I was kind of anxious that she would say yes after all of that. I know she loves him and won't leave him, but it was satisfying to see her reject him for the first time. Fingers crossed he also loves her enough to accept her perspective. I worry that he'll harangue her about what he wants like he has all these decades and harass her that she owes him for humiliating him. They had found an equilibrium, unspoken as it appears to be. Your father sent a tremor through their foundations by his public proposal, and it seems he's doing nothing to shore them back up. See also his rant to you. I hope you giving him a reality check has helped him wake up to a new humility. Imagine spending 40 years with someone before deciding to spend the rest of your life with them. What in the world? The stupidest part is how they could have just said, "Yeah, we want to stay together for life, but we don't want to marry yet," and maybe change their mind later. But nope, he just had to hold it like a carrot in front of her as if to keep her going? Like what? Good on her for being like, no, I'm just happy being with you. I don't care about the marriage part anymore. Even though I'd personally not stay with a person acting that way for all their adult life. This is exactly what bothers me the most. I never wanted to make fun of my dad for his trauma because my grandma not only was a cheater, but also an abuser. She would hit both my dad and my uncle. So even if his condition was a bit unreasonable, as I said, it wasn't in my hands and maybe it was his way to seek reassurance. But after he changed the condition to me having kids for them to get married, was where I felt like he just wanted to find any excuse to just not marry my mom or to postpone it the longest he could, which is pretty messed up, honestly. Now for the update. Before updating, I want to respond to questions that either didn't seem really relevant, since not a lot of people mentioned them, and I didn't want to repeat myself too much in the comments where it could be lost easily. Why did my mom stay with my dad? To summarize and not repeat too much of the same, she always has told me she thinks he is the one, even if they don't get married. She told me this when I was around 17 years old, and that's more or less the time I low-key realized she gave up on marriage. I knew since I was a child that they weren't married because my aunts and even my uncle would ask my dad when he was going to propose, and he always found a way to evade the subject. So yeah, I feel bad saying it, but my mom doesn't know how to let go of him. So now on to the actual update. My dad didn't talk to me during these days. I don't know if it was because he was angry at me or felt embarrassed, or both. But I wasn't going to apologize or go ask him what was going on with him, so I just went back to my own life, and if something happened, I would eventually know. The thing is that I didn't really think something would happen so quickly. Yesterday, both my parents came to my house. Surprisingly, my mom seemed angry, and my dad's face looked like my mom gave him an earful. When they both went in, my mom, still angry, smacked my dad's arm and told him something like, "Now tell him." So it turns out my parents didn't talk until yesterday morning since my mother's birthday. My mom avoided him like the plague despite my dad trying to talk to her, which made him more frustrated. Eventually, my dad begged my mom to talk to him and said he didn't know what to do, that no one was supporting him, and that I even laughed at him. My mom said something like, "No, of course Opie did not do that, because when it was the moment of the proposal, no one was laughing or saying anything, so my mom thought he was talking about that moment." But then my dad spilled the beans and told her he visited me to rant, and I gave him the cold shoulder, telling him his truths, and that he couldn't believe I would talk to him like that, and so on. She then became extremely angry and went off on him because he was pushing me into a problem that did not concern me, dragged him to my house, and forced him to apologize to me. I genuinely haven't seen her this angry, and it both amused me because of how defeated my dad looked and scared me a little. My dad apologized like 4 times before my mom was satisfied because he first wouldn't look me in the eyes. My mom demanded that he look at me, and when he did, he said it in a monotonous voice, and my mom told him to change his tone. At some point, I couldn't hold my smile because what was this situation? My dad was acting like a kid, and my mom was raging so hard the whole situation was kind of comical. Eventually, my dad gave me a proper apology, and just to not let a laugh escape, I just nodded so they would stop. My mom, after all of that, gave me an actual apology in the name of her and my dad, saying they wouldn't bother me with their own problems again, which is not really what I wanted. So I told her that she could share her worries with me if she wanted, and that my door was always open for her. I looked at my dad and told him that it applied to him too, but did not expect me to enable his poor judgment or decisions, and he just nodded. I think he was embarrassed, so I left it alone. I don't think my dad will speak about this incident again, since he tends to avoid topics that make him look bad, but we will talk again. Even with all this stupidity, he is my dad, and I do love him. My mom, however, did talk to me over the phone last night when they arrived home. I asked her what she was going to do about the marriage, and she said very firmly she didn't want to marry my dad anymore, which actually surprised me because I was convinced she would temporarily reject my dad and eventually accept. But I was wrong. Of course, time will tell, but the conversation with her makes me believe she will stay firm about her decision. She told me that even after my dad avoided compromising, she still loved him, and she didn't see herself with anyone else. She told me he doesn't mistreat her, he provides for her well with both money and physical affection, and that she has plenty of time to go out with her friends and to do as many things as she wants. Which, good for her if she wants to keep that lifestyle. But that her time to get married was something she already let go a long time ago, and that planning a marriage seemed very tiring. Even if my family is not that religious anymore, they would definitely prefer a church wedding, which requires tons of preparation, and she is a bit too old for that. I was left a bit worried about her not having the benefits of marriage, but she told me she didn't think she needed them. She has a job of her own, she has her own savings, and that even if my dad were to suddenly pass away, she wouldn't live long either way, so it didn't really matter, which made me a bit sad to think about. But if she really doesn't want to get married to at least benefit more from it, I can't change her mind, and honestly, I don't really want to. My dad had plenty of time to propose and did it a bit too late. So yeah, that's how things are. I don't think I'll update again until something major happens, like my mom changing her mind on marriage or something of the sort. But again, she seemed firm about it, so possibly nothing will come out of that. I'll leave this account for some time and I'll delete it when I remember to come by again. Thanks for reading and saying my mom is great. I do agree that she is amazing. She has supported me all my life, even when I came out of the closet. She used to be extremely and openly homophobic, but made an actual effort to accept me and change her views on it. Same for my dad. I love both my parents, even if I'm flaming my dad online and laughing in his face lol, but I know he loves me too. He can't do much about marriage now, but since she won't leave him, hopefully he will treat my mom with more respect and will spend their days like a proper couple. Last story. I refuse to help the daughters of the woman who broke my family. I, 31 male, grew up in a dysfunctional family. My dad had mental health issues and was somewhat of a junkie. My mom had anger issues and was emotionally neglectful. They fought constantly. When I was 9, my dad had an affair, just 2 months after my younger brother was born. That affair broke the family. He left for over a year. Eventually, he came back, but things were never the same. We later found out he had a daughter with the woman he had the affair with. He claimed he wasn't in touch with her anymore, but a few years later, we learned they had another child together. Things went downhill again, and eventually, he left us for good after another blowout with my mom. I was 16 when he just left. He left us the house, which we rented rooms from just to survive. After about 3 months, I reached out to him for help. Surprisingly, he agreed. It wasn't much, but he sent me a little money every month, and we kept in touch on and off since then. I didn't tell anyone for years, but eventually admitted it to my mom. I resented him for leaving us, but over time, our relationship became somewhat civil. He did what he could, and I helped him out when possible. A few years back, I even met my half-sisters, now 19 and 17, after he insisted. I didn't blame them. They didn't ask for the mess. I stayed in touch with them and offered help whenever I could, even though I was still facing my own mixed feelings about this. A few months ago, my dad passed away, just 2 months before his retirement. Since then, I've tried to support his other family discreetly, helping with things like his pension paperwork and even some of my younger half-sister's medical treatment. I never told my mom because it would only open old wounds. Here's the problem. I recently became a dad myself. I'm the main provider for my family, my mom, my now 20-year-old brother, who's in college, and my newborn son. My job is decent, but it doesn't leave much wiggle room. Last week, my older half-sister called and asked if I could help them pay their rent. I told her I couldn't. I've already stretched myself thin trying to keep my own household afloat, and this was just beyond what I could manage. She sounded upset, and even though she didn't guilt-trip me, I could tell they were desperate. I don't know what to do right now. While I'm under no obligation to help them, I'm also struggling to maintain my own finances. Am I in the wrong for not helping them in this case? Your own family comes first. Thanks. I haven't shared this with anyone else till now. OP, you cannot do it all, and I hope everyone appreciates your efforts. Not sure if your father had any benefits from work, a pension, or 401k that might give some financial support? I already stated that I helped them with the pension papers, and I didn't even take a penny from that even though I'm owed it. Update. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad's wife I will never consider naming my child after her recently deceased mother? Original post. I'm currently 29 weeks pregnant with a girl. My husband and I have already chosen her name, as well as 2 backups in case it doesn't suit her. My dad's wife lost her mother a little under a year ago. They were extremely close, and her passing was unexpected, so she's not coping well. My husband and I are trying to be as helpful and accommodating as possible, but we don't live in the same country as them anymore, so there isn't much we can do. Back in February, my dad and his wife came to visit us for 10 days to celebrate our son's birthday. This was our first time seeing them after her mother's passing, and their first time seeing me pregnant. Early during the trip, we had dinner together. We all started talking about my pregnancy and the baby, and when my dad asked if we had any names in mind, his wife stopped us. She asked us if we could consider naming our daughter after her mother. She said she had been wanting to ask us this since she learned we were having a girl, and it would mean a lot to her if we could honor her mother like that. I don't think I have to justify why I wouldn't do that, but in case I do, I never liked her mother or thought of either of them as family. Even if I did, my husband doesn't like the idea of using our children's names as tributes, so we wouldn't name them after any of our deceased loved ones. My husband and I were taken aback. My dad looked a little awkward, so I think he was already expecting her to bring that up. I said I was sorry, but we had already chosen the name and weren't interested in changing it. The mood died a bit, but we did manage to change the subject and enjoy the rest of the evening. My dad's wife was quieter than usual for the next few days, but she didn't bring it up again until the final night of their trip. Everyone was at our place. She pulled me aside and, once again, expressed how perfect it would be for us to keep her mother's memory alive by naming a child after her. She started talking about how much she would have loved it and how a beautiful name such as hers shouldn't go to waste. I interrupted her and said there was 0 chance we would ever consider naming our child after her mother. I told her it would never be up for discussion, and for her own sake, she needs to accept that and stop bringing it up. I was admittedly harsher than I'd intended, but I'm not sure she would have gotten the message otherwise. She barely spoke to me and my husband until she and my dad flew home the next day. My dad and I have been talking about this. He agrees with our refusal. He didn't really like his mother-in-law either, though he never admitted it, but thinks I shouldn't have turned his wife down like that. He told me she's still dealing with her mother's passing, and I should have been more sympathetic. He's insistent she wouldn't mind our daughter's name if we at least told her we'd consider honoring her mother. I don't think humoring her would have been the best call, but I am worried I was too harsh. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. You owe her nothing, especially since you just call her dad's wife, so she doesn't even sound like a close stepmom. It's sad that her mother died, but what does that have to do with you or your unborn child? Don't let her emotionally manipulate you into changing your mind. My dad started seeing her when I was already in college, and he wasn't interested in remarrying at the time, so I never really registered her as family. I did live with them for a little while, but we had wildly different personalities, so we were never really close. Not the a-hole. She didn't take no when y'all politely said it, so harshly was the only way to get your point across. It's always weird when someone asks you to name a child after someone. It wouldn't even mean the same if you didn't do it, because you wanted to. When my son was born, my dad joked that his name was available, but didn't say anything besides that, and didn't complain about the name we actually chose. He later told me it was a joke, and he always thought that was a bad idea. An adult who is middle-aged, not getting over the death of a parent like this, needs help from a professional. Again, they were extremely close. They take trips, go to concerts, and spend hours on the phone together, even after I moved out. I heard her refer to her mother as her best friend once. Back when I lived with them, she would call her mother multiple times a day, almost always just to narrate what she was doing. We're going to the restaurant. We got to the restaurant. We're ordering. We're eating. We're going home. Not the a-hole. There are only two people who have input into what name a child receives. The parents. Should people make suggestions? Well, in my opinion, only if the couple asks for them. You handled the situation well the first time she mentioned it, and she should have taken no for an answer. You had no choice but to be firm the second time. She should have let it go after the first time. Some of my family, including my in-laws, was miffed when we didn't take suggestions while naming our son. He was the first grandchild, so I chalked it up to excitement at the time. Now for the update. Hey guys, I came here for advice a few months ago. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl back in May. She's now a month old and thriving. We're all in love with her. My husband and I decided to go with our first choice for her name. Truth be told, the backups didn't stand a chance, and it suits her perfectly. My dad stopped bringing up the subject of how I'd talked to his wife a few weeks after my first post. The last thing he said about it essentially boiled down to, be nice to my wife, but for the love of God, don't name my granddaughter after my mother-in-law. He wanted to visit us this month to meet the baby, but I told him to wait a while longer. The house is a mess, and we're still getting used to having two kids. His wife has been very detached from anything that concerns my daughter. She spent the weeks leading up to my baby's birth radio silent. She usually lives on her phone and texts frequently, so I figured she was still upset. Both my and my husband's families like our daughter's name. My dad in particular complimented it a lot. His wife did not react to it. My aunt visited them recently and later told me that while my dad would show her pictures and videos of my daughter, his wife avoided the topic entirely and was cold whenever someone tried to get her to engage. To be clear, none of that ever bothered me. But this behavior was very out of character for her. When I was pregnant with my son, she created a group chat with my whole paternal family and her mother to start a countdown for his birth. She was my only acquaintance who protested when I said I didn't want pictures of my child posted online. About a week ago, my dad's wife called me. She reiterated that she felt I wasn't being very understanding of what she's going through, but apologized for how cold she's been lately. During the call, she explained that losing her mother had made her regret her decision not to have kids. Her mother had always wanted to be a grandmother, and she wishes she could have given her the opportunity to experience that. She took her mother's passing very hard, and it made her reflect on various things she wishes she'd done differently. But the news of my second pregnancy intensified that regret in particular. My dad's wife said that she'll always wish I'd named my daughter after her mother, but still accepts the name I chose. She also told me she'll start seeing a therapist soon. I was mostly quiet during the call because, frankly, I didn't know how to react. Having since had time to think about what she said, I'm a little freaked out. It's still hard to explain how I feel, and this isn't even close to my top concern right now, but I didn't see this coming. I almost feel bad admitting this, but I'm very glad we're in different hemispheres. I can't imagine what she's going through, and I wish her nothing but the best, but I don't think being close to my family right now would be good for either of us. Thinking back to how I handled things when she first asked us to use her mother's name, I'm pretty sure I made the right call. I sincerely wish I'd been more polite, but humoring her would have probably led to a much bigger headache. I'm not sure when we'll see her again, but it won't be until next year. My dad will come visit us in October, but she won't come with him. When she does meet my daughter, I hope she's doing better. Right now, I'll focus on my children. Postpartum sucks, and my husband and I are still getting adjusted to being a family of 4, but we love both our kids so much. I don't know how I got so lucky. I almost definitely won't post again. I am very tired and very busy, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. Thank you. Edit. To those asking, I'm freaked out because I wasn't expecting her reasoning to be that she regretted not giving her mother grandchildren, as I stated in this post. I sympathize with her grief, and I'm glad she's decided to get help. I think your stepmom was and is going through grief from losing her mom. She was hoping that by you naming your daughter after her, it would make it feel like she was still around. You did well by not naming your daughter after her. The good news is, she realized it, has apologized, and is seeking some grief counseling. I got my boyfriend a bracelet that has a small picture of his dad in it. His is a black leather braided strap with a small silver circle with the picture. You have to hold it up to the light to see the picture. So it's more than knowing what it is that makes him feel it. There are all types you can get. I chose a more masculine design, but there are more feminine ones you could find. I did a Google search and found a style I liked. The gift could be an apology for being harsh, but also a nice token of, I know you're going through it, and thought this might be a nice way to help you carry her with you. I'm very glad she's decided to start therapy. I feel like acknowledging that you need help is a necessary step, but actually going through with it is harder than it looks. I have a different experience with grief than she does. There was one specific time in my life in which I lost many of my loved ones very quickly. I've discussed that in therapy, but I regret not working through it sooner. Not the a-hole. That wasn't an apology. That was a justification for her actions. She still thinks she is in the right and probably believes you are doing a disservice. Money down, she refers to the child with her mother's name back in her area. I wouldn't let that happen. I don't doubt that. Good luck with the little one. My best piece of advice, don't let her arrogance control your life. This isn't impacting my children in any way right now, so I think we'll be okay. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to go home to my parents even after they called the cops and CPS? I, 16 male, went to my best friend's house 3 weeks ago and refused to go home even after my parents got CPS and the cops involved. My parents are still fighting to bring me back to them. They talked to my best friend's parents, and the adults had a several hours long talk. Afterward, my parents told me they'd change and they wanted to make things work. But I told them I didn't trust them, and that living with them comes with so much negativity and rejection that I'd rather be someplace where the people around me want me there. My parents told me they want me and that they never ever said otherwise. I said they did a crappy job of proving that to me, and then my parents told me I was punishing them for the actions of other people. The reason I left is basically my whole life's worth of family issues. My dad was divorced when he met my mom, and my mom's first husband had died. I think it was a year after my dad's divorce and 2.5 years after my mom lost her first husband when they met. My dad had 2 kids and my mom had 3. My half-siblings are 13, mom's oldest, 10, mom's middle, 9, dad's oldest, and 8, mom's youngest and dad's youngest, years older than me. My half-siblings hated their step-siblings and their step-parent. Before I was born, there was a ton of fighting. It got worse after I was born. None of my half-siblings liked me, and when I was 6 months old, my dad's ex-wife died, which created even more problems and hate, according to extended family. I don't know all the details, but when I was 3, my parents left me with my mom's oldest to babysit, and she left me in the house alone. My dad came home and found me, and my half-sister was nowhere to be seen. When Mom confronted her about it, she told her she'd left maybe 4 or 5 hours before. It was something my extended family on Dad's side talked about for years after, and I'd hear it being brought up every few weeks. Apparently, when I was little, a bunch of my toys were broken by my half-siblings. They'd kick or smash them so I couldn't play. I don't remember them doing it, but my dad admitted it happened, and he told me once he was glad it stopped by the time I could remember. I remember a lot of fighting, and I remember my half-siblings being really mad at me when I had no idea why. They always told me to stop calling them siblings or half-siblings, and to say we weren't family because we weren't. And I'd see them fight each other, step versus step, and then say the same mean stuff about me, but they still hated each other too. Whenever I was left with them, they would either lock me in my room or lock me outside a few times. My parents knew about it, but they kept leaving me with them. Other times, my half-siblings fought our shared parent because our parent would offer to drive them somewhere, and they'd say no way because they didn't want to be in the car with or next to me. My dad's kids even threatened to open the car door next to me and let me go if they had to sit next to me. Whenever I had a family birthday, they'd refuse to join in and would say stuff like they'd rather be dead over my dead body. I don't give a damn about him. Or why would we celebrate nothing? They all moved out eventually, but my parents still saw their own kids a lot, and they'd join in for family celebrations as long as they weren't my celebrations. They'd always make a point of not being close to me. They refused sibling photos with me and their steps. At Christmas, they would come and bring gifts for cousins and leave me out. My extended family never cared more than my parents did. All my extended family were good for was telling me more about the stuff that happened before I was born or could remember. When my mom's oldest got married, she told my mom I wasn't invited. Neither were the steps, and dad wasn't welcome either, but she guessed she couldn't stop her from bringing him as a +1. My mom and dad forced me to go anyway, and mom's oldest made a point to let it be known I wasn't wanted there. They tried to bring me to a baby shower for her too, and her husband would not let me in. Dad's oldest got married, and they forced me to go to that uninvited again. This time it was a smaller thing, so they refused to let me in, and my parents tried to fight it and basically made me watch as I was rejected over and over again the whole day. My parents still let my half-siblings into their house, where they were nothing but mean to me. My half-siblings who are married have spouses who ignore me. My mom's middle kid is getting married, and again I'm not invited, and my parents were planning to pull the same stuff again. They planned it even though she was rude when she came to our house like a month ago. My parents said I'm their sibling and all this other stuff. I realized they would never do better by me. That's why I left, and why I refused to go back. I don't trust them to stop putting me in those positions, and I don't believe them when they say they'll change. My parents told me I need to be home and not with my best friend's family, and as my parents, they can demand I go home. I told them even if my best friend's parents change their minds, I won't go back to them, and their house isn't my home. They told me I'm being difficult and putting my best friend's family in a bad place. My best friend's family told me it was good with them for me to stay, and my best friend's mom told me it would be better if I stayed. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I have family that still won't talk to each other at least 5 years after CPS had to get involved with them. It's a hard situation, and feelings get very hurt when outside forces have to be involved. You're hurt, and that's very valid. Them calling the cops and CPS made me realize that stuff like that should have been done when I was left on my own at 3 for hours, or when I was locked out as a little kid with no way to get back inside. But nobody cared then, and my parents doing it now when I'm safe was really annoying. Have you told them that? Have you asked them why they are involving CPS now that your toys aren't broken anymore, now that your life and safety aren't threatened anymore? If you want to let all of your frustration out, you could ask a meditation and therapy session where you can spew everything they allowed to be done to you without them having the chance to say that's disrespectful or fair. I did. They told me they were so sorry they didn't act sooner and they'll change. But I don't believe them. Maybe that sounds jaded, but it was only a few weeks ago they were insisting on forcing me to another wedding I'm not invited to and not wanted at. God, that's awful. I was pretty sensitive to rejection as a kid. I can imagine how badly this would affect you. To be forced into that situation again and again by your parents, a few times could be clueless, but it feels almost mean-spirited to make you the brunt of so much hate. You were and are a child for Pete's sake. Not the a-hole. Stay where you feel safe. I hope the best for you. May you be free of all of this and gain a found family who treats you with the love you deserve. My parents would always skip talking about the rejection and go to how I deserved to be there, that I was family, I'm the sibling and stuff, as if that made up for being rejected at every turn. The fact they could be so obvious about it shows that people around them know and support it too, so it's not like I'd have a good time even if my parents forced me in.